the Global Young People's Convocation and Legislative Assembly. I'm currently studying at FSU, just started a master's a week ago, and I'm pursuing English education. I'm also a youth ministries director at a local United Methodist Church in Tallahassee, John Wesley UMC. First of all, I would just like to say thank you. Thank you so much for all your prayers, love, and support, for the few, for me it feels like many, the few mission trips that you have supported me on, and I really couldn't have gone without your love and support. I really appreciated your prayers, especially through the typhoon. Everybody was worried, but I said, we're going to be fine. I've got a church praying for me. You don't need to worry. Christ UMC has covered us with prayer, and we will get through this typhoon. The conference I attended, the Global Young People's Convocation and Legislative Assembly, took place this quadrennial in the Philippines in the middle of July. On the next slide, you see the logo for the event. The idea was crossroads, that we were meeting at a spiritual crossroads, at a cultural crossroads, and we learned about Bible stories that reflected that kind of point. For example, Jesus and the woman at the well. Jesus, a Jew, and a Samaritan woman. Two totally different cultures with a lot of tension between them. But in that moment, Jesus was able to speak to her. And I think that moment stands as a testament to the cross-cultural ministry that Jesus calls us to. The next slide is a picture of the whole group of delegates. We were a large group. And what I really like about this picture is that you can't even tell who's who. You can't see me. You can't tell. I could maybe try to help you find where I was, but it's so hard to distinguish the individuals. And that was the spirit of this trip. It wasn't about individuals and my comfort zone, my language, my country, where I'm from. We all came together as a united group to express our hopes and dreams for the future of the United Methodist Church. Some quick facts about the conference. There were 34 different countries represented by over 300 young adult delegates. They're all the ages of the delegates. No one was over 35. So we had 16-year-old high school students up to 35-year-old young people. It was a very dynamic conference, and it's held only once every 4 years. So it's kind of like the Olympics for the young people of the Methodist Church. It's our big event. The purpose of this conference, it was created by the Methodist Church in order to ensure that the young people had a voice in the church, in making church policy. And it's a direct avenue to the General Conference of the United Methodist Church, which is the largest, most important meeting of the Methodist connection through delegates. I wanted to start out with the biggest challenge of the event. And maybe some of you got some news about Typhoon Glenda, which hit the Philippines the same day that all the delegates were arriving. So we all say that we arrived and Glenda did too. And actually, I arrived at the airport at 3 a.m. with quite a few other delegates for the conference. So they loaded us into buses as rain had been steadily falling, and we started the bus ride to the retreat center where we were going to have the event. And that bus ride was a test of faith. There were about 5 of us in a little caravan going through totally deserted streets. Street signs had fallen on the ground. Trees and debris were blowing all miracle that none of us were struck by any of the flying debris, but everyone had underestimated the power of this storm. So as we were driving through, one of the first examples of my first experience of the Filipino culture was when a felled tree blocked our path. And all the drivers of the buses and some of the volunteers that were with us got out of the bus into the typhoon to pull the tree out of the way so that our bus could go and that we could safely stay dry and pass through the obstacle. And that was just one example. I'll explain more about these amazing volunteers and this amazing culture of hospitality. In the next picture, you see the destruction of the retreat center where we were supposed to have the conference. And the only way to describe it is really the roofs were peeled back like the tops of sardine cans or tuna cans. Just the wind peeled it right back, and the windows were broken, and things were shattered, and everything. It was quite an experience. All the delegates lived through a natural disaster together. But in that moment, we had all been evacuated into our meeting space, and we were all sitting there with power coming in and out, very limited water, no running water, and one bathroom servicing all the delegates plus the 100 staff and volunteers. And in the middle of all this, you would see little pockets of delegates grouped together, playing music together, singing praise. And I joined one of these groups because what else are you going to do? What else are you going to do in the middle of a typhoon but praise God? When you're in a group with 300 other young people, we're here to make change for the church. What else can we do? What else is there but to praise God in the middle of that storm? And so my group was a mix of American and Cambodian delegates, and we had the idea that instead of having separate little worship time with our culture, with our language groups, we should have it all together. So we kind of spread out and found the little groups and organized a little spontaneous worship, which lasted for over an hour. And different groups of young people took the stage and shared worship songs with us. We were taught songs and dances. Songs were sung in different languages. We had the African delegates. Oh, that was my favorite. Oh, the African worship really moved my heart. And they sang in at least 3 different languages. The Americans, we only sang in English. But it was such a blessing, and we all just brought what we had with us, the faith and the music of our culture, and we just shared it all together in the middle of this typhoon with lights blinking on and off and no internet. It was amazing to see what we could do just as a group of young people, Christians, together. In response to the typhoon, we worked with UMPOR to package over 600 meals for the local community where we were. And those meals went straight to the area around Manila. And we raised over $1,500 just by taking up a collection. And if you think about it, these delegates were giving up their souvenir money to pay to help the people around us that were suffering so much more greatly than we were from this storm. And another thing that was very striking about the Filipino staff and their just radical hospitality, we asked the staff, have you checked in with your family? Do you know what's going on with your home? And a lot of them said, we don't know what's going on. I don't know if my house is still standing, but I trust God that my family's okay because I prayed for them, and I know that God will protect them. We're here to serve you right now, and we're here to take care of you. And it was just so remarkable that they put a group of 300 kids, total strangers, above the needs of their own family. We were their family too. We were their family. We were the body of Christ, and they were there to help us. That was just a very humbling experience. other big part was the Legislative Assembly. We were there to do work, and we called it Holy Conferencing. We went over 5 different petitions, and they were submitted by the young adults. A range of topics, everything from the environment to gender equality to divestment in corporations involved in making money from international conflicts. So we were dealing with very contentious, hot topic issues as a collective group of young people and deciding what our stance would be as the young people of the United Methodist Church. So that's the legislative part. That was the hard work. The convocation part, I'll begin by explaining, this was actually a friend of mine who was presenting her paper. And that was our new meeting space, which was outdoors, but how many millions of people in the world don't have air conditioning? That's what I said. Whenever someone was like, but it was often the American delegates who were complaining, like, oh, it's so hot. And like, all the African delegates were fine. They were like, yeah, whatever, we're used to this. We're here to do work. So it was a very interesting experience to see the different cultures and interacting with each other. But the workshops really were a very growing experience for me. I was able to take 2 workshops, one on faith friendships, which was discussing interfaith dialogue and how we can be friends with people of other faith and work together for our common goals, like world peace and medicine for children, things we can all agree on, regardless of what our church looks like or our synagogue. The other workshop I took was facilitated by Church and Society, which is a body of the United Methodist Church that works to make real the social principles of the United Methodist Church. And the social principles, I don't know about you, I had never read them all. I'd heard the phrase social principles, but if you've never gotten your hands on a copy of it, I suggest you read it. It was very informative, and it really explains the stance of the Methodist Church on a lot of issues that we are dealing with as a country and as a world today. And it really explains the church's stance on these issues. So we don't have to wonder or have contention within ourselves because we have decided as a church that these are our stances on these issues. So it was very inspiring to learn about what the United Methodist Church is actually doing to enforce and make real our vision for the world, the transformation of the world through making disciples of Jesus Christ. And I called it the UMC in action. Another very important part of this conference was the worship. We had daily worship through the conference that was provided by a local Filipino worship group. And it was very dynamic, very spirit-filled contemporary worship. We had 300 delegates from around the world all singing and dancing and praising God together. And I don't think I'll ever forget that experience. And the other thing that was so beautiful about this worship is that we sung songs in different languages. We were taught songs that we weren't really sure what we were singing. We didn't know exactly what the words meant, but the feeling of praise was there. We knew we were all singing to God. We didn't have to have it exactly in English. We didn't need a translation of every word to know that we were worshiping God together, and that's what was so important. Also, for our Sunday worship, they split all the delegates up and sent us to local United Methodist congregations in Manila. So we were all able to have different experiences within one city of the United Methodist Church. And I was blessed to go to a congregation of all young adults. Praise God, those exist. Congregations of all young adults, many of them the only Christians in their families. They were largely unchurched previously, but this church was reaching out to that group, to those young people. And it was a very inspiring, mission-focused church that really helped me see that that's a reality. There are real churches that are predominantly young adults. And maybe we look around the USA and we feel like, oh, that's not something we have here. Methodist Connection. We were also able to witness the commissioning of 42 missionaries by 6 different bishops from 3 continents, which was such an amazing experience. These missionaries are part of the same program that my older sister is currently doing, the Global Mission Fellows program. And these missionaries were sent out across the world and across the USA to serve in all different kinds of positions. But that moment when all those missionaries were saying their vows, and I'll never forget, they all repeated in unison, "I am not my own, I am yours." And that was just such a powerful moment to see those young people putting God first, absolutely first, and saying, "I am not me, I am not myself, I am not my desires, I am yours, I am what you desire." It really was a moment that reaffirmed for me my call to continue in missions, because I felt like, oh, me too. I want to do that too. I'm inspired to do that too. And it was I feel like a lot of the delegates, after seeing that very holy moment of committing yourself to Christ, a lot of the delegates were inspired to do missions internationally and also in their local communities. And that's the picture of the service where we had the commissioning of the delegates. It was a very beautiful service. The other very important thing that happened at this conference was in our closing worship. As we were singing praise, a group of 5 students came up to the front, and once the song was over, they said, "We motion to the body," and everyone groaned because we had finished all of our legislative work, and we were sitting in a sanctuary like this in the middle of our closing worship. And they said, "We have a petition." Oh, everyone groaned. What is it? More work. And it was 5 delegates from 3 different continents that spoke 5 different languages, at least. And they put before the body a unity statement. And this statement was unanimously passed with thunderous applause. Everyone got to their feet. It was a very beautiful moment. And this was our statement to the Methodist Church, our final word from this meeting of 300 young people from 34 countries. It was a statement of unity. And I wanted to read some of the most powerful moments of this petition to you. It says, "We, as the young people of the United Methodist Church, would like to say that we do not desire a divided church. We urge everyone to seek solutions that promote our global unity as the United Methodist Church of Jesus Christ, rather than focus only on the issues that divide us, so that we may faithfully live out our mission of making disciples of Jesus